Welcome to Cypress versus Playwright, Let the Code Speak. In the blue corner, wearing his favorite t-shirt, weighing in for Cypress, the darling of JavaScript front-end development, it's everyone's favorite Cypress ambassador, Filip, the interceptor, Hric. Filip is the QA lead and test automation engineer at Slido, where he spends most of his day maintaining a test automation suite that was built from the ground up starting the day he arrived. With a background in psychology and counseling, Filip has a great passion for sharing what he has learned with the world and publishes weekly Cypress tips on his blog, philiphric.com. And in the red corner, wearing his super cool Applitools cap, weighing in for Playwright, the new kid on the testing scene and the defending versus serious champion, it's the one, the first official Playwright ambassador, Andrew Pandy Knight. Andy Knight is an engineer, consultant, and an international speaker who builds solutions for software testing problems. He's the director of Test Automation University and our developer advocate here at Applitools. You can read Andy's tech blog at automationpanda.com. All right, audience, let's make some noise. And I'm going to hand the mic over to Andrew Pandy Knight and begin this battle.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for those introductions, Pam. And hello, everyone. Pandy Knight here, your Playwright ambassador. So excited to be here today. So, you might be wondering, why are we taking the time to compare Cypress against Playwright in this head-to-head code battle? As I'm sure almost all of you are aware, Cypress and Playwright are two of the hot up-and-coming test automation frameworks for web UI, for browser automation. And what's really nice about them is they actually have a lot of similarities in their philosophy. Both are looking to improve the developer experience around writing end-to-end tests for web UI. They have a lot of really nice features that go along with them, with the tracing and usability and all that kind of stuff. The APIs that they use are very concise and clean. And they also do a lot more than other tools out there on the market, like Selenium, things like automatic weighting. But nevertheless, there are some fundamental differences between these tools. Cypress kind of hit the market first a couple years ago, is very JavaScript-centric, very focused on the front-end developer, whereas Playwright is focusing on other aspects, things like speed, things like other languages, things like traceability. And so we thought the best way to compare these tools would be a head-to-head matchup, which is what we're going to do today. So let's look at the rules for the matchup that Filip and I are going to be facing off in. We will have a series of 10 rounds. In each round, there will be some sort of code comparison or code challenge or comparison that we're going to make. We'll alternate who goes first, Cypress for Filip, myself for Playwright, and we'll show you the code of how to do things like how do you interact with elements, how do you make API calls. We'll then put the two side by side, compare, contrast, talk a little smack, it's all fun. And then you, the audience, will get to vote on which one you think is the better way to do it. And at the end of the competition, after all 10 rounds, we will crown a champion based on which side got the most votes throughout all the rounds. So Filip, my friend, are you ready for this?
Yeah, my friend. I am ready for this. Let's do this.
Alrighty. So round one, we're going to look at element interaction. Basics, like how do you click, how do you scrape. For this round, we're going to be interacting with this sample web application login page. It's got icons, username, password, all the basic kinds of things you would expect. So Filip, how do we do this in Cypress?
Yeah, so as you said, we're starting with the basics. So first of all, every command in Cypress, it starts with CY. You don't need to import anything. You don't need to add anything. You're just good to go writing CY visit, CY get to select selectors. You can use CSS selectors, IDs, or anything. Basically, you're using the query selectors as you would when you're working with CSS. So the syntax is super concise, And what's really nice about this as well is you have this automatic waits. So even if you load the page and for example, the username is not there right away, Cypress will automatically wait for it to appear and then only type into that. So yeah, just the basics at the beginning. So show me what you got.
Sure thing, man. So this is how you do the same thing in Playwright. What you'll notice right off the bat, the calls are going to be very similar. But you will see that, first of all, everything begins with a page. It's not going to be cy.something, it's going to be a page. That page object is given to you, and all interactions happen from there. You'll also notice that we are awaiting for things because we are doing things completely asynchronously. It's baked into how the entire approach is, which is pretty powerful. So if you want to visit something, page go to. If you want to do things with elements, first what you do is you say page locator and pop in your query to access that element. And that will give you a locator object from which you can perform interactions. So you can fill it with text. You can click on it. And you can do basically any sort of interaction a human would. Also, I want to pull attention to what those selectors were. If you notice here, you could use multiple things. You could use CSS selectors. You can use XPath. You can even use things like React and Vue and all that. But here we're using Playwright's ID selector. And that's why it says ID equals username, which I think makes it pretty clear as to what kind of selector you're using. And then finally, when you want to check for something on the page, we use Playwright's expect. That's the standard JavaScript-y kind of assertion function that we call. And the Playwright assertions are web first, and that they'll automatically do all the waiting. They'll wait up to 5 seconds by default for the desired state to come into existence. So you eliminate a lot of that flakiness that you might see. So let's compare these head to head.
Not bad, not bad. But I would say those awaits are kind of pesky, don't you think?
Oh, really? Come on, man. This is just straight JavaScript. This is full async.
All right. I can give you that. But I'm also looking at the element header, the selector, the first. What's that about?
Oh, that's a great question. You mean in the assertion there, right?
The first thing, yeah, the first command, first something.
Yeah. So page locator element header dot first. Something that Playwright does is anytime that you have a locator that could find more than one element in a list, it'll actually perform what's called strict validation, and it would throw an exception, right? We always want our selectors to point to exactly one element unless you're using it in a list context. So here, since .elementHeader as a CSS selector could return multiple, that .first method that we add on says, I want to get the first element in that list. So you're being explicit. Right. And so I think be explicit rather than implicit.
Okay, I'll give you that. I guess it's good to have explicit selectors.
Alrighty. So are we ready to send this to the audience?
Yeah, let's do that. We'll see how that goes.
Alrighty, first chance to vote, folks. We'll give you about a minute here. I really wonder how this is going to go down. What do you think, Filip?
I think Cypress can win this one, but I don't know the audience yet. So I think the first one will sort of set the ground for everything. We'll see. I'm really curious.
We'll see. Yeah, I'm a little nervous, not to be honest. That Cypress code is fairly concise there. Oof.
That's why I like it. I mean, it's sort of easy to start. That's what I like teaching other people with Cypress. It's really readable. It's really intuitive. But I guess you could get used to the Playwright syntax as well.
Yeah, it's all what you're accustomed to. How long have you been doing Cypress, Filip?
Actually, I guess almost 6 years. I jumped on early. I jumped on on version 0.18 or something like that.
Wow.
That was fun. I got an invite actually.
Nice. All right. So we think we've given enough time here for everyone to vote?
Hopefully, yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Oh!
Oh, all right.
Ouch! Oh, man!
Yeah.
That was... Woo! That hurts me. Here, I gotta write this result down. Oh my gosh. Woo! So, Cypress wins this round almost 2-1. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Come on, friends. Where's my playwright peeps out there? Yeah, alrighty. Well, shall we head to the next round then?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's jump in.
All right, so next round is inline frames or iframes. Here's the page we're going to do. This is from the Apple Tools Cookbook website. Basically, we're going to have an iframe with some elements inside of another page, and we're going to be interacting with that. So this time, Playwright will go first. Again, the page.goto should look pretty familiar to what we had before. You could actually test out this page yourself if you wanted to. And so what we do in Playwright, first we want to get, First we want to get the iframe element on the page. So we say page.frameLocator, and again, we're using an ID selector there to fetch it. Then from the iframe element, we're going to fetch another element inside of there, which is going to be the fruits and vegetables table. If we wanted to, we could say page.frameLocator.locator and just chain them together. I tend to be a little bit more Pythonic in my code, even when I'm writing in, say, JavaScript or C# or TypeScript. So I like to kind of lay them out like that. But then, once we have the locator to the table, if we want to check to see if it's visible, we can say, await, expect your table to be visible. We have that web-first assertion there. All right, Philip, show us what you got.
All right, so again, we visit the page with cy visit to open the page, and then 3 simple commands to navigate through to the iframe, find the right element, and make an assertion. I have to be honest here, the iframe command is actually a plugin. So
what?
Currently, yeah, sorry, is that cheating?
What? Whoa. So you mean to tell me that Cypress can't handle iframes on its own?
I mean, it can, but not as elegantly as you can see right now. So it's sort of a wrapped function with all kinds of stuff going on behind. But yeah, this is a plugin. So if you want to use iframe and you want to do it in a very easy way, then you should use plugin. If you hate yourself, then you can do it manually. Man. But that's a lot of code.
Man, so you're already cheating here a little bit, Philip. Jeez, I want to see that ugly code.
I mean, you can use all of the Node npm packages you want with Cypress, so I would say that's an advantage, isn't it?
Gosh, but then I have to remember that. See, if I'm new to Cypress and I come in and I see on your blog you're showing how to do this, but I missed the part about install this extra little plugin, I'm going to be banging my head against the keyboard for like half an hour trying to figure out why doesn't this code work?
Oh, I would definitely mention that. I'm mentioning it now, so I'm trying to be transparent, you know.
So why doesn't Cypress just like improve their own code? Why do they have to have this extra little plugin on the side?
I mean, I think they have it in the roadmap, but I guess we have to wait for that a little longer.
Okay. Okay.
But let's so you select the iframe, then you find, and then you have the assertion with the shoot command. I actually wanted to stop on that for just a second. So compared to Playwright, you have those expect assertions, and in Cypress you have chai library bundled in, which is sort of wrapped in this shoot command. So you sort of create this chain of commands in Cypress, and a shoot is something that you would that wraps the chai library, and you can write nice, elegant assertions like this. So that's how we would test this.
Sure. Awesome. So let's look side by side here. So I want to ask about this chai assertion thing, because I'm not at heart a JavaScript person. I can tango with JavaScript and TypeScript, but most people probably know more like Python and other things. So what would happen if I were to put in some errant string in that should? Like here you say should be visible. What if I fat fingered that? Should be visible, blah, blah, blah. Like, is it going to throw me an error? Is it going to catch that at all?
I mean, if you're using TypeScript, you would have the auto-completion in your VS Code or in some other editor. You would probably be able to find out really soon. I can't remember precisely now if you would make a typo, if that would autocorrect or it would just underscore.
Okay.
But you would get an error that would tell you something around the along the, like, this is not an assertion you can use or something like that.
Got it. Yeah, because that's one thing I like about the playwright assertions is like it is the name of that function there, to be visible, or I should say method. So it's like it's going to resolve that versus, you know, plain strings. That's much tougher. I mean, you could have like the IDE thing or like a VS Code plugin, I guess, to catch that for you, like you mentioned. But in terms of like a type system or something. All right. Any other smack we want to talk about these, Mr. Filip?
I don't know. I mean, yeah. I mean, it looks nice. I would say the Cypress thing is much more concise. But yeah, you're going to give me a hard time for using the plugin, aren't you?
Hey, dang right, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, okay, so everybody, when Filip and I were working on the example code in GitHub, we had one repository, which we can share the link to at the end of this, and we put Cypress and Playwright in opposite folders. When I checked out the code initially and tried to run it, I didn't run the npm install, and so I was the guy for half an hour trying to figure out why the damn iframe thing didn't work. So just want to belabor that even more. Anywho, yeah. So all that aside, let's move on to the voting. Please remember to vote in the slides window. Just popping a message in chat is not going to be counted. So here we go. Round 2, Cypress Playwright. Which one do y'all think is better here? This one's a toss-up too. Got my notebook ready. We'll give it a few more moments here for people to pop in. And again, please do vote in the slide window. Right now, from what I can see, it looks like we have over 460 people joining us, which is pretty incredible. Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you all for being here today. These are always fun events, and I'm glad to be facing off with someone as honorable as Filip here.
Oh, same here. I'm glad to be a part of this.
Yeah, glad you're here. All right, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ding, ding, ding. Let's see what happens here. Whoa!
Oh, okay.
Dang. I think that whole plugin thing resonated with folks.
Yeah, all right. I guess I asked for it.
Syntaxes and everything. Yeah, because they knew you had something to hide if you didn't have the plugin.
I mean, I wasn't hiding it. I told everyone.
It's all good.
Maybe
it's all good. Okay, round 3. Let's talk about waiting. Now, we all know that waiting is one of the biggest hassles with test automation, right, Filip? I mean, but thankfully, both Cypress and Playwright have auto waiting features in them. So let's take a look at what they look like. Here, this time, the site under test is a demo automation bookstore where you can type in the name of a book and it'll filter in real time. But with automation, you'd have to make sure you wait for the things to sync. So how does Cypress do this?
So Cypress was actually designed around this. So it was built for modern web applications. So the waiting is actually automatic. So whenever you do an assertion or you try to find an element, there is a wait built into that. So I mentioned this already. If the search bar will appear after the page is loading for a couple of seconds, Cypress is automatically going to wait and re-query the element until it finds it, or until the timeout will be finished, right? So the default timeout in Cypress is 4 seconds. Do you know why it is 4 seconds? Actually, 4 seconds.
Yeah, that's
I asked about it. True story. 3 felt like too little, 5 felt like too much. So Cypress team settled on 4 seconds.
I was expecting something like powers of 2 binary, but okay, we'll take it.
No, it's simple as that. Everything in Cypress is definitely trying to be designed to be very simple, and the timeout is simple as well. So what you can do with the timeout is you can change it, of course. If you have a slow application, you can change it globally, you can change it on the test level, or you can even change it on the command level. So especially if you have like one selector one element that will take a couple of seconds to load, you can change that just for that element, so your test doesn't wait for everything too long and will fail fast eventually if you need that. So yeah, that's about it for Cypress. So show me what you got.
Nice. I'm not gonna lie, I basically have the same thing.
Did you change the slide?
No, man, I know, right? But it's basically everything you just said is what we do in Playwright too. I will say the default waiting for Playwright is 5 seconds, not 4. Whoop-de-doo, right? Again, that is customizable, and again, it is a smart wait. You know, we all know how hard sleeps are terrible. They're like the worst anti-pattern for automation, right? These are smart. So as soon as something happens within that 4 seconds or 5 seconds, then it moves on. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be go to the web page, get the locator for your search bar, again, the nice ID selector, type in whatever you want to do with the fill command, and then the web assertion. Expect this to have a count of 1. Which I do want to point out, what's really nice about this is between the filling of the text and the assertion here, the fact that this is a smart waiting web first assertion, right? At the very moment you type in something, the page probably hasn't synced, so it probably has those 8 books still appearing. So there is that inherent race condition that if you were to perform an assertion right away, it could fail. But this is smart enough to, even if it hits that failure the first time on the condition, it'll be smart and wait and check again. And it basically waits for the page to meet that count of 1. So it's smart in that sense, which is really nice.
That's really nice. It works the same way with the shoot command. So if the shoot assertion doesn't pass, it makes the previous command retry too. So if it's requerying the DOM, then it does that. And it's really good that this is built for testing tools, for testing modern applications that get re-rendered all the time and everything is changing. Yeah,
definitely. And I think, like, because the two solutions are so similar here, I kind of want to take a take a shot at other tools, not to talk bad necessarily, but like, you know, historically I've done a lot of Selenium WebDriver work, and so the waiting is something you have to handle yourself, right? You can set an implicit wait, which does not scale well, which means you have to do a lot of explicit waits throughout your code, and so you either need to kind of duplicate code everywhere, or you need to have a pattern in place, like screenplay pattern, to handle that for you. Or you just don't do it and you hope and pray, and we all know that doesn't work. It's statistical, right? It's like, you know, it may only have that race condition go bad, like, you know, 0.1% of the time, but if you run 1,000 tests, it's guaranteed to happen, you know? And so that waiting for the condition is something that you explicitly have to handle with a tool like Selenium WebDriver. You can do it, but you have to do it. Here, it's done for you in both Cypress and Playwright.
Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty, so head-to-head, take a look. Shall we proceed to the voting?
Yeah, let's do that. I guess this could be anyone's.
I expect to see a 50-50 split. If I don't see a 50-50 split, I'm going to be shocked. Or something like around there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this will sort of tell us, like, what's the audience here.
Yeah, that's true. That's really, this one is not so much about which one is better. This one is about which way does the audience lean. Which, this could be the determining factor for the rest of the show. Oh my gosh. Alrighty. So, give a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see what the results say. Ooh, Cypress with a small edge.
I mean, really small edge. That's interesting. It was almost 50-50.
It was,
I guess
though. So that's,
it's pretty leveled, I guess.
Yeah, I'd almost be like, can we make this one a draw? But no, that's not fair. Cypress wins. Oh.
If we had the option to draw, it would probably be draw for this time. Yeah. I mean, how can you choose between those two? Those were almost the same code.
Exactly. All right. Excuse me. Next round, alerts. So alerts can be quite pesky with browsers, right? They're the things that aren't necessarily on a web page. They just kind of pop up at the top. They can be something you just have to confirm. You could dismiss them, or it could be things where you have to answer a prompt and give an answer, right? So the way that we've done this is we've actually categorized this into 3 different alerts. One's where you accept it, one where you dismiss it, and then one where you have to enter something. So let's take a look at what that code looks like. First, Playwright's up this round. The way that Playwright approaches alerts is not so much to be reactive in terms of interaction when it happens, but rather to be proactive with policies on how you handle alerts. So, for example, when you accept an alert, before you would trigger the interaction that would make the alert come up, you would set a policy on the page to provide the response. So, page.on the event of a dialog, and then there's a callback function. What are we going to do for accepting alert? We're going to check that the dialog message contains something. In this case, air fryers can make anything. I swear, Angie Jones must have written this page if she's talking about air fryers. Yeah, there's got to be Angie in there. Anywho, so we're going to verify that there's a certain message in that alert, and then we're going to accept it, and then that'll make it close out. So then, when we navigate to the page and we click the alert button that will trigger the alert, this automatically happens, right? So you could set that policy like right before. You could set it before you even navigate to the page. You could set it like universally in your test suite, and it would apply within scope, however you apply it. Now, to dismiss an alert, it's the same kind of thing. So the navigation and interaction is the same, but now the policy that we're setting, page on dialog, we're just saying dialog dismiss. Just get rid of it. And then finally, to answer something, again, it's exact same setup. On dialog accept, but it's that same accept method, but now we're actually passing in a message. We're going to say, what's your favorite food? Nachos. What I really, really like about how Playwright does this is notice how everything is standardized. It doesn't matter what kind of alert, it doesn't matter the type of interaction or the checks you want to perform, it's handled as policy, and the way the policies are handled are uniform in the code, which to me is really, really nice. So, Filip, what you got for Cypress?
Well, I got a little bit mess of a code that I put together. And the thing is, the reason for that is that the way Cypress automates things inside the browser is sort of different, I guess, from Playwright and from other tools. So most of the time what I see is that test automation tools enter the browser from outside. They sort of automate the actions on the browser. Cypress is kind of different in this because you open a browser and you inject, you have 2 iframes basically. One is with the Cypress script that is automating the application, and the other one is the application. So to handle something like an alert or prompt or something like that, you got to be a little bit creative. So there is, as you can see in the accept alert example, you have this CY on window alert. So you can sort of listen to an event, and when that happens, you have a callback function which you can, in which you can make your assertion. So here's the chai. Again, you expect the alert to have a certain message, right? The air fryers can do anything. With dismissing alert, you have another event. You have window confirm. And what I did I basically did a very similar thing. I just passed on a function that will return false. So you could sort of write it in the same way. I just chose not to basically show how it can be done. And with the prompt, the story is a little bit different. So the bad thing is there is no CY on window prompt in Cypress. So what you need to do is you sort of tap into the onLoad event, which is an event that your web page, or rather your browser, will trigger when it loads all the assets that happen when you load the location, right? When you visit the page. So you tap into that, and you basically say that, all right, whenever there's a prompt, you make it return the "Hi Mom" text. So that way, the handling of that, it's kind of like this, right? You kind of need to make your way around, but yeah, you can do that. So I guess that's one of the areas where we sort of trade off the design of the test automation tool. But it can be done, and you don't need a plugin for that.
All right. So side by side here. So I actually want to drill into this a little bit more for the answer prompt. So if you have already loaded the page, like cy.visit paren, and then you start doing interactions, then is it too late to set up the answer prompt, or is there a way that you can still hook in and do it?
I think there is a way you can still hook into it and do it. You would do, basically you would have that CY stub, but it would happen somewhere else. I'm pretty sure about that. To be 100% sure, I would need to test it out. But as far as I remember, yeah, you can do it even later during your test run.
Okay, that's good. Otherwise, that could be kind of sticky, because I know a lot of people in their setup routines might want to navigate to the page, and then the main part of the test might want to, beep, bop, boop.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but I gotta give it to Cypress. Your code is pretty consistent here. All dialogues. It's really elegant. You win the beauty contest on this one.
Yeah. So I have another question. Because I'm not as familiar with Cypress as you are. What happens if an alert pops up on a page, but the code doesn't do anything explicitly for alerts? Does Cypress automatically accept them, or does it just kind of freeze there like other tools might?
I think if I remember correctly, all of the alerts are automatically accepted. So if you want to handle it, you need to write code like this. And if you don't care, you can just ignore it and continue with your test. Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Playwright does the same thing. If you don't set any policy, it'll just by default accept any alerts that pop up. So that way it doesn't get stuck. I don't know about you. I've had some times where it's like an alert pops up and I'm wondering, why isn't my thing moving? Why is my test just stop here and crash? Oh. Oops.
I mean, who uses alerts anyway? Are there still that's for a while?
That's a whole nother issue right there. Why are you using alerts in your page? Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should just avoid that. Okay.
Right, all right. Forget
Let's go to voting. So, Cypress Playwright for alerts. Who did it better? Who wore it best? Remember, answer in the slide window, not the chat. We'll give a few seconds here. While we're waiting, Philip, do you have any beverage of preference you like to drink while you're doing webinars and stuff?
I mean, I had a double shot coffee before this, as you can probably tell. Next round is tea versus coffee, right?
That's right. That's right. So I've got my Bojangles sweet tea. I live in the American South, and we have a fried chicken place called Bojangles. Amazing. Sweet tea, legendary.
Nice.
And then here I've got a
water.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, so I've also got
I jumped into oh, nice.
Yeah, I got a local soda called Cheerwine. But sorry. Anyway, didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries. You didn't. I think I jumped into you. I just have water in this, and you have to believe me, it's pure water.
Yeah, it's all good. All right, let's see the results here. Oh my gosh!
Oh wow!
Wow,
right.
that is shocking. That is brutal, dude. Wow.
Yeah.
Ouch. Well, I can.
Ouch! That one hurts. All right.
That hurts. I mean, if it were like, you know, like a 30%, 70%, like okay, but dang, like 90% one way. Oof. Okay. Well, now we're tied up 2-2.
All right.
All right. Moving on, shall we? Navigation to new windows.
All right.
So here, the way this is going to work is we have another kitchen sink thing from Apple Tools. When you click one of these buttons, it will open a new page, but instead of being in the same window, it opens it up in a new tab or window. So we're going to see how you can handle that in each framework. Take it away, Filip.
All right. So in Cypress, as I mentioned, there were a couple of design decisions made when Cypress was made. And one of those decisions was that you have two iframes, right? One with your test script, one with the application. What this will do for you is it will prevent you from opening a new window and have your test script in that window as well. So what you need to do if your application opens a new window is you go to the button, the kitchen table, you get that, and you remove the attribute target, which should basically say, all right, let's open this on blank page. Let's open this in new tab, in new window, or something like that. If you remove that, what's happening? You have a full access to your application. That's amazing, right? You can like change classes and everything. So basically, you go on invoke command and remove the attribute and continue on with your test. So yeah, that's how you would do that. And I would say that's good, wouldn't you?
Ooh, we're gonna have to talk about this a little bit.
Give me a hard time for that, right?
Yeah, I mean, so Cypress can't handle more than one page, is what you're telling me. So you've got to hack your site or your app to make sure it stays on one page.
Yeah. Why is that bad?
And you're okay with this?
I'm totally okay with that. I mean, what your browser will essentially do is it's going to call that location and you will get a document back and it will load everything. So this will do the same thing just on the same window.
But you can't go back to what you had before.
Can't you? I don't know.
I mean, I guess you could hit like a back button, or you could navigate back and get back to that page, but you can't have them simultaneously existing.
Oh, like Simon. All right, so like a chat application or something like that, and go through the windows. Yeah, you couldn't really do that. You couldn't really automate it like this. Although there are ways you can definitely achieve a good test coverage of an application like that.
I suppose. Yeah. I mean, it is debatable. Do you want more than one page at a time? But if there were a case where I needed it, I would want a tool to provide that, right? Oh, Filip, you're killing me, dude.
I mean, if you put it like that, we could probably go on and talk a little bit more about this. I would argue maybe you not always need that, but I agree. I agree. This can be a pain point for some people.
Yes, somebody out there, the 1% that wants to do that, yeah.
We'll see how many, like, and then we go to the voting and it's like 70%, right?
Oh my gosh. Cool. Sorry. I'm sorry, I should not have interjected so early.
I'm finished here.
You're okay, cool. So let's see how to do the same thing in Playwright now. The code might look a little bit gnarlier, but what this is doing is this is setting, in the second little set of lines here, it's setting up a promise to say, hey, when you trigger the opening of a new page, we're going to capture that as a new Playwright page object, hence let new page equal. So that way you can actually have your old page and your new page at the same time. They'll still be within the same browser context, so they'll share things like the authentication and any cookies you've got. But you will have the original page and then the new page, still operable. So then what we can do once we have the promise to get the new page, we can wait for that new page to load. Then we can start interacting with that new page as if it were the old page. Expect my new page URL to contain my resource path, or expect my new page to have that fruits and vegetables table on it. I didn't show it here, but like I said, you can still use page.stuff, and it's all there still. So here you are actually opening up a new page in a new tab, and it's fully interactable. You don't have to hack your page to remove the target and then have it overload.
All right. Yeah, okay. Looks good. So
Yeah.
how does it compare?
Sure. So anything else we want to chat about here before we proceed to voting?
I don't have anything. Like it looks nice. I like I like what you did here with Playwright. I have to give you that. So you don't have to hack it. You can sort of automate 2 things at once, or 3 things at once, or 5 things at once. But wouldn't the code get a little complicated after that?
Yeah. To that I would say there's a difference between the power of the tool and what it can do for you, and from a test design standpoint, what you should be doing. Right.
All right.
I mean, I would say the cases for which you would want to have 2 pages side by side for a test automation standpoint, I would find that hard to justify. Now, in terms of general browser automation, like if I'm building a tool or something, I may want to spin up like 12 pages at a time and have it all go scrape things at the same time, right? So from that aspect, I would say, oh gosh, yes, Playwright, absolutely. But
that's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point, because we not only are comparing 2 different tools, we are comparing 2 different sort of philosophies of how to approach the test design. And
I will say though, when I look at the code side by side, I do nevertheless appreciate the conciseness of Playwright, or of Cypress. The nice chaining there, the way you have everything lined up. That to me looks very nice. Shall we put it to a vote?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, audience, up to you. Which one's better? Many ways to approach this angle. See what everyone says. Definitely
going to be a surprise, I think.
I'm afraid of all these. Oh man. All right, let's give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom!
Oh.
People were convinced by multiple pages.
Yeah, all right. I'll give you that. I guess you're not alone in.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Round 6, API requests. So, cool thing. Both Cypress and Playwright can make API calls. This is what I would consider like one of the hallmarks of these modern end-to-end web testing frameworks. Older tools don't always have this baked in. Now, do you want to do APIs? Some people no, but a lot of people yes, because it's very good to have that hybrid approach where you could do something on the front end and then twiddle the back end. It's much faster to, let's say, insert a whole bunch of data via API just to have it ready. Right, Mr. Filip? Exactly. Yeah. So again, in the Apple Tools Kitchen Cookbook website, we actually have a public API. It's got just a bunch of dummy data, but it shows how you can use a basic REST API. JSON format, nothing too fancy here. So Playwright's up again first, huh? So the way that we would structure these in Playwright, anytime you've seen that page object in Playwright before, that actually comes from what we call a browser context. The way that Playwright handles its browsers, you have the browser instance, then you have the browser context, which is like an incognito-esque session within the browser process. And then from the browser context, you can pull any number of pages. You usually only need one, but as we saw in the previous one, you could have multiple. Playwright also has the concept of a request context in addition to a browser context. The request context is basically like the origin object for making your API calls. So from the request context, or we can, from Playwright's request object, we can make a new context and give it things. We can give it, say, a base URL, so we don't have to duplicate that over and over again. We could give it cookies. We could give it authentication, whether that's basic HTTP authentication, a token authentication, or whatever other strategy you have. And so that way, anytime we make requests off the request context, they get all that shared state as part of it, so you don't have to duplicate that specification. So when you go to make a request, you'll say, you'll create a response variable and say response equals await my request context dot get resource path, or dot post, or dot patch, or dot delete. All the HTTP methods are supported, and then in the method body, or in the method arguments here, you put your resource path, but you could also put other things, like if you had request parameters or headers or a body, right? Those can all pass through as well. Then on your response object, you can start performing assertions, and they're all going to use that same expect function again. So you can expect your response to be okay, meaning it'll give you a 200 result. You can parse the response body as JSON or whatever, and then you can perform assertions on each of those parts too. Expect your body's time to be greater, your data length to be greater than 0, those kinds of things.
All right.
Cypress time. Let's see it.
Exactly. I think you're going to like this. So with Cypress, we're kind of continuing with the whole cy.command API. So you have a request command, and similarly, but not exactly as in Playwright, you sort of have a different context. So with request, you're actually firing those HTTP requests from Node. So Cypress is simultaneously running the browser, but you can run processes in a Node. And request is going to fire that request from Node, so you cannot even see it in browser, and you can enter like all of the domains or whatever. And it's with the syntax simple like this. So this is like the most simple way you can write it, when you just go request and put the URL. And that would automatically result to get request to that URL. And you can change, of course, the method. All of the methods are supported as well. Or you can pass in an object to this function and add your headers, add anything you'd like. Moreover, implicitly, you are testing the request. So if the request by any chance will not give you a 200 code, it will fail the test. So you get like exactly the response you want to have. But if you are looking for a 404 or something like that, you can bypass that and just tell the request command not to fail on status code. And then we're sort of continuing with the chaining logic in Cypress. You sort of have these command chains, and what you will do here, you have a then command, and I'm using destructuring in here, so that's like the curly brackets and the status body duration. Basically, from the object that the request will return, I'm taking the status, the body, and duration, and using those nice chai assertions, I'm testing the status, I'm testing the length of the data, and again the duration that it actually did something, right? But as I mentioned, I wouldn't even have to do that, because if it would fail, it would just fail automatically for me. So yeah, pretty concise and elegant, if you ask me. I think you like that as well, don't you?
Yeah, I have to begrudgingly admit that is really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess Playwright is a little clunkier here, but yeah.
Killing me. I mean, I will ask this though. You know, with Playwright, like I said, we have that request context, so we can kind of carry state forward. Whereas with what the code snippet you showed here, it's like everything has to be specified, you know, in it. Is there any way to carry forward and share things like a base URL or any sort of cookies or shared headers or shared authentication? Like how would that be handled? Would it be something you'd have to like have an object you just plunk in every single time?
Probably more closer to that. So as I said, you're sort of chaining the commands together. So if you want to use something from the first request in a second request, then you either will have to wrap it inside that then function, or you can use Mocha context to sort of create your variables and pass that information on. There are many ways to approach that. But yeah, so you sort of need to do that manually, I would say.
Okay.
So like save you the cookies automatically or something like that.
So maybe there is an advantage to the extra syntax. Ooh. Just maybe. Let's see what the crowd thinks, huh? All right, voting's open. Cypress, Playwright. Who's going to take it home this round? This could be a toss-up because there's two very, very good ways to approach this. This would be another good example to see like the leanings of the audience, you know, right? What people favor between the trade-offs.
Yep. I mean, the last two rounds were kind of brutal. I am expecting a turnaround here, but we'll see.
Alrighty. So let's do the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Results. Oof.
Oh.
2/3. Yep.
Okay.
Cypress. People like that clean syntax, man. I'm still going to stick to reusability, but I can't win them all, can I?
Nope.
Okay. Let's move on to round 7. Page objects. Now, I know page objects are very controversial, and I know from outside of this, Filip, you and I both agree that page objects are not necessarily the best pattern for things. But nevertheless, they seem to be the stalwart of practice within the industry. So I felt it would be good to compare them, you know, even though like, you know, you favor Cypress Actions, I favor Screenplay. I thought this would still be a good comparison that would speak to most people. Am I right?
Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to go back to that.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, we're going to go back to that login page, and we're going to show what a page object would look like for this. And Cypress is up first.
Yeah, so basically a page object that you can see here is an object that will have different variables for selectors. So we got our username, password, and login, which we pass on to the login function. And functions are built for interactions. Now, obviously, as you said, we can do this many different ways in Cypress, and page objects sort of get a bad reputation in Cypress, like they're sort of an anti-pattern, which I don't really believe they are. But I guess if you're doing the abstraction, you can do it. You can do it in page object as well. So if you're used to that, I strongly encourage you use that. So what I did here with the login page object is I created two functions. One is the load that will load the application. Then the second one is the login, which will basically do the interaction on that page. And both of these functions have this return this statement, which will sort of take us back to the top level of that page object. So on the right side, when you can take a look at the test, you can sort of preserve that sort of chaining syntax you would have in your Cypress test. So instead of CY, load or CY login, you have a login page, and you're sort of chaining those commands together, creating a nice readable test for yourself. So yeah, that's about it. I wouldn't say this is a traditional page object. I think you could probably choose a more traditional approach. This is how I would approach a page object. So yeah, but we're in JavaScript or TypeScript land. You can do anything. So if the page object is working, go ahead. You're laughing at that. Okay.
No, it's true. Like in Java,
you can do a lot.
Just smack things on, man. You want a new object? Boom! You got it, buddy. Yeah, I know. I remember the first time I was doing JavaScript was like back in 2008, before we had all the niceties of modern JavaScript and TypeScript and stuff, and just the bad things you could do with it. It was just like, ooh, feels dangerous.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So here is how I would have developed a page object for Playwright. And this is much more of a traditional page object structure. So we have a class, not just an object with some methods tied to it. And because it's in TypeScript, that's why we have to declare all of our variables at the top. If this were JavaScript, you could smack them on as you go, but TypeScript, everything, be explicit rather than implicit, you define it. So at the top, we've defined the page object that will be injected via dependency injection, as well as the locator objects that we will build from that Playwright page object. In the constructor, you can see we receive that page through dependency injection, which we would pass in through the test case. It stores that variable, and then it constructs the locator objects. We're not just storing the selectors as we did in the Cypress example. We're actually constructing the locator objects. Remember, locator objects are different from element objects. Locator objects are simply like pointers, but we can construct them one time and then reuse them. So here in the methods, and again, everything's going to be async because Playwright is fully async, first-class citizen, it's beautiful. But the interactions are going to be very familiar to what we saw before, both in Cypress and from the previous Playwright example. So we'll say, for loading, this page go to, and then for the login, we pass in username, password. But instead of now saying something like page.locator, boom, boom, we can use those locator objects that we constructed before. So this username input fill, this password input fill, this login button fill. And I really, really like this because it is documented by design, right? It's very readable. Sometimes selectors can be really, really ugly, if you know what I mean. Like these IDs are very friendly, but if you've got like long CSS selectors, you got long XPaths, if you pop them in line, it can become an anti-pattern because you have no idea what //div/ parenthesis contains what it's, right? But when you say login button click, you're clicking the login button. When you say username input fill, you're typing in a username. So it's very, very obvious from that standpoint. And then to use the page object, you would construct it like you would any other objects, and then you would load and log in using those methods.
All right.
So side by side, what do we think?
I mean, that's a lot of code on the right side. It's a little clunky, isn't it?
Explicit rather than implicit. And it was the way that we chose to develop them.
All right.
It does have the reusability of the locator objects. Yeah, because if we had additional methods here that were using those same locators, we wouldn't have to reconstruct the locator objects. Or like another thing that I've done in my Playwright code is I'll use page objects to kind of define structure. And then when it comes to those web first assertions, like instead of having them buried in methods here to keep them more flexible, I'll just refer to those locator objects outside the page object class, like expect, username input to be visible or something. So in that sense, they're also very reusable as a structuring of pages. But you're right. Really sorry, go ahead.
I really like what you said about TypeScript, that you sort of define everything at the top, and you're sort of creating your like a self-documenting code for yourself. So anyone coming into the repository or to the project can get up to speed really fast. So that's a good one, and that is a real good feature of both of these tools that they support this.
Yes. And you can do it your way. You know, there's nothing wrong with your approach, right? I mean, it works. It's good. It's concise. I appreciate that it has less lines of code than mine. Is what it is, right?
Exactly.
Cool. Alrighty.
I guess let's take it to the crowd.
Take it to the crowd. Yeah. Audience, what do y'all think? Who wore it best? Playwright or Cypress? Or Cypress or Playwright? I think this one could be a toss-up too. I'm expecting a fairly even split.
We'll see.
One is just going to cream the other, and we're like, what? Alrighty. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Poll results. Oh my gosh!
Ooh, wow. That is
what? What? Oh my gosh! It's like less than a percentage point off. Woo!
How many people we got here? That have been like just a couple of people difference. Really, like maybe 4 or 5 people voting differently. All right.
I mean, so we basically had 2 rounds so far that have been very, very close. This one, what was the previous one? I can't remember.
I think it was the waiting, right?
Yeah,
where
round
we had
3.
Really similar code. Round 3, I guess.
Yeah. I'm gonna put little tick marks by those because both this one and that one could almost be argued as like draw, right?
Yeah.
But it's balanced because it's one that way, one this way. So, okay, interesting. Oh my gosh, wow. Okie dokie. So we did 7 rounds that covered code snippets, right? Head to head, boom, boom, boom. And where we're at, we're 3 points Cypress, 4 points Playwright, but still very, very, very tight neck and neck. The next 3 rounds aren't necessarily going to be about code snippets, but rather about aspects of the code and what it can do. So round 8, we're going to talk about language support, right? In all of our examples today, we've been using TypeScript. I know in Playwright, TypeScript is the preferred approach. In Cypress, you can do TypeScript or JavaScript. Philip, I'm just curious, from your perspective, is there like a favored language that most people tend to use, or is it pretty split?
I think most people start with JavaScript. At least most people in the tester community, I find reaching more to the JavaScript because it's simpler. You don't have like the whole thing of typing going on. With developers, they're happy to jump on the TypeScript, especially if they are using already in their code base and they add their end-to-end tests to that. And they can like closely couple the source code and the test code. You get this static layer of testing when if the code doesn't compile, then you don't even commit that. So I think it's very popular with developers especially.
Interesting. Yeah, because I know for myself, if I'm going to start a project, I would strongly favor doing it in TypeScript over JavaScript because the type system is just so helpful. That's just me.
Yeah. I'm on that too. I mean, I definitely go for TypeScript nowadays.
Nice. So let's do a head-to-head here comparing the other languages that our favorite tools support. I notice a big difference, Philip. Do you see what I see? Could you spot the difference?
No, I don't see anything there.
Oh. Really?
Yeah, so, all right. I see Playwright has more languages to choose from, which is nice. But I mean, we're writing test automation for web applications, so we got the language of the web, right? What else do you need?
Come on, man. Like you know as well as I do, there's tons of people out there who write web UI-based tests that don't use TypeScript or JavaScript, right? Historically, Java was the king, right? But there are strong factions that use Python and .NET. Before I joined Apple Tools for about 5 years, I was essentially a .NET test automation developer. That was the main language. We used SpecFlow and C#, and it was amazing. It was awesome, right? Never had any issue. So are you telling me that I wasn't a true automationeer or software engineer in test because I didn't use JavaScript or TypeScript, Filip? Is that what you're implying here?
I'm not saying anything like that. No, just, I mean, look at your path. You went from these languages and you jumped straight into TypeScript, which is supported in Cypress. So I guess it's all good.
It's getting spicy in here. Oh man, you're not wrong. I mean, I can pick up all these and roll, But I mean, I still like the fact that, for example, Selenium WebDriver supports Java, JavaScript, Python, .NET, Ruby, PHP, and I think even some other, I think maybe Go as well. I don't remember all the languages they support. And what I really liked about that approach was like, it didn't matter where you came from. You could pick the language of your choosing and still be able to do this kind of thing. And then when Cypress came out, it was really hot and awesome a couple years ago, but it was very narrowly focused on the JavaScript world. And I was like, that's really cool. I wish I could take the nice developer experience of Cypress with the portability of Selenium. And then Playwright comes along and I'm like, sold, we're good, we got it.
Yeah, I guess the reason for that was that it was sort of created as a tool for developers that are going to use JavaScript and TypeScript anyway. Since we are running inside the browser, there are not too many options to do anything else. So I guess that's kind of a limitation that, as far as I know, will always be there, but I may not be authorized to confirm that. So don't quote me on that, please.
Well, there's always WebAssembly, right?
Yep. So we'll see how that goes.
Like at PyCon this past July, or we're not in July yet. Oh my gosh! This past May at PyCon, this month, Anaconda released PyScript, which is Python native in the browser. So it's WebAssembly is coming. So the dominance of JavaScript as web may not necessarily last forever. We shall see. So let's pitch it to our audience. Is TypeScript JavaScript sufficient for test automation needs, or is it still worth it to have these other languages? And is it good to have a tool that does them? Or is it better? Let's see. Let the code speak, Filip. Let the code speak.
Which code?
Oh, I'm dying. All right, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slam dunk.
Oh yeah.
Who's the 20%? Who's the 20% out there? What is going on?
People are happy in TypeScript land.
Oh man, I could say some mean things right now, but I'm going to hold my tongue. All right, so let's move on. Next round. This will be interesting. Browsers.
Right.
So this is actually a very, very interesting one. This one, I see this going either way. So Filip, can you share with us the types of browsers and the way in which Cypress supports these browsers? Yeah.
So Cypress is supporting real browsers. So as I mentioned a couple of times, when you write a test or when you run a test with Cypress, it's going to open a real browser. So you got all of your dev tools, everything available to you as you write the test, which goes really well if it makes up for a really good developer experience or user experience. So as for the support of the browsers, you got anything that runs on Chromium. So that's Chrome, the new Edge browser, plus you got Electron and Firefox. Plus, if you have some other browser like Brave or something like that, you can import that. By default, Cypress will just find what's on your computer and will offer you to run that. So if you have like Chrome Canary or something like that, you can do that. As for the testing, if you are running your tests on your machine or on the CI, you can run one test at a time. So you open the browser, run your test, close the browser, open the other, and continue with the other test suite. So if you have 100 tests for Chrome, 100 tests for Firefox, you sort of need 2 commands to run those. So yeah, basically that's it. I guess the real power for Cypress lays in the fact that you are running the real browser. You basically open it and run your test. How is it over at Playwright?
A little different, but still awesome. So Playwright, by default, does not run full or real or stock browsers. It runs against browser projects. So we support Chromium, we support Firefox Gecko, and we support WebKit. We all know the Chromium browsers, Chrome, Edge, even Electron is based on Chrome. Firefox, Mozilla Firefox, and WebKit for Safari, which is something I don't see under the Cypress column there. The reason why it uses browser projects is simple is better than complex. When you install Cypress, it will install the latest versions of these browser projects, put it on your path so that execution is very easy. I know Cypress handles this browser setup very well, but I know with Selenium WebDriver, you've got to set up these browser executables, which everybody at some point inevitably messes that up on their path, or they forget to do it, or some version falls out of sync. That was my life for like 5 years. It's just something you have to manage. But here, Playwright, I feel like from a setup standpoint, manages it a little easier for the average person. In addition to those browser projects, Playwright also has browser channels to use the stock browsers you have on your machine. It supports Google Chrome as well as Microsoft Edge. So you can run those tests, whether you can run them either against like the Chromium browser project, or you can run them against Chrome and Edge if you've got them installed on your machine. A really nifty thing that Playwright does with its browsers, and I mentioned this a little bit before, there's browser context, and page. When you start your Playwright tests, for the entirety of your test suite, it only ever launches one browser process. So if let's say you're using Chrome, it'll launch Chrome or Chromium. It'll launch that process one time, and it'll endure for all tests. Now you might think, wait a minute, doesn't that violate test independence, right? That's where the browser context comes in. So for every test, it does a browser context off of that shared process. So you don't have that overhead time of constantly starting and stopping the browser process and waiting for it. The browser context is something that you can create in a split second. It's fully independent, incognito. Browser contexts don't mess with each other. So every test, whether it's serial or in parallel, can safely get a browser context and set up, tear down very, very quickly. So that's another nice aspect of browsers with Playwright. And also with Playwright, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, yeah, that's really nice. I just commented on that. Continue.
Yeah. Because I remember with my Selenium WebDriver test, it was like you'd have to wait anywhere from like 3 to 10 to 15 seconds per test for it to start up and do its thing and then safely tear down, right? Playwright is like pew, 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 pew. It's so cool. The one other thing that is really cool about how Playwright does it is that you can test multiple browsers in parallel at the same time. So in the JavaScript implementation of Playwright, when you do npx playwright test, which would be analogous to like npx Cypress run, Cypress run playwright test. Yeah, I got that right.
Cypress run, yeah.
npx playwright test. If you don't specify the browsers or the projects, by default, Playwright will run Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit in parallel. Boom.
Oh, nice.
Up to the number, and it'll spin as many processes as you have, up to as many cores as you have on your machine. So, I've got like an M1 Mac. So my work machine has like 8 cores. So it can go up to 8 cores before, So anyway, but yeah, you can just pew, 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 run all at once. Or you can specify, hey, I only want to run Chrome, or I want to run only Chrome and Firefox, and it'll do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, with running parallel in Cypress, as I said, if you want to run in parallel and you're setting up your CI, you need to have separate steps. You can run them in parallel, but there would be like separate steps on a CI. And what Cypress does, I mean, you can do it. It's achievable. I would say for both of these tools. What's also nice, I really like what you mentioned about the contexts. This is something you absolutely have to have clean for all of your tests. Cypress does that as well. So this is something that actually confuses people at the beginning. If they have like multiple tests and they log in the first test and they want to do something in the second test, it's suddenly you're logged out because Cypress will just clean the state before of the browser for every test. But there are ways to share those contexts and try to like speed up your test by not logging in multiple times, but you can like share that if you want. You have that option. But this is great that both of these tools kind of think about this, that this is something you need to have.
Yeah, I'll agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. Like the concerns of modern test tools and frameworks is no longer just how can I send the click or the scrape, right? It's how do we make it easier for people to do the right things with testing? Because if you have bad setup, like if you're leaving browser processes running as zombies, you'll knock over your CI server in due time, right?
Yeah.
Been there, done it. Been there, done it. So the fact that we now have tools that make it easy to do the right thing, as my friend Michael Pack would say, make the right thing to do the easy thing to do, you know. So shall we put it to the crowd again?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, everyone. What do you think? How or who did the browsers better, Cypress or Playwright? Do we want all full browsers all the time? Are we okay with browser projects? Is the parallelization a big deal or not a big deal? What do you think?
I think we're waiting for a close one again.
Yeah,
that's my guess. We'll see.
I'm vibing with that as well. I think this one's going to be close. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Let's see the results. Oh my gosh.
Wow, I didn't expect that.
What? I did not expect that either. That is, youch, scorching. Oof.
I guess that's the webkit report.
Man, I don't think that's fair. Like I would have voted for Playwright, but I did not expect this slam dunk. Holy crap.
Yeah,
either that or all the Cypress folks just gave up and signed out. Oh my gosh.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so final round, speed. Gotta go fast, right? Sonic the Hedgehog! Now, this one I think is going to be a slam dunk too, unfortunately, my friend. But, so here's how we did this. We have all those snippets that you saw from rounds 1 through 7. And so what we did is we ran them all on the same machine multiple times just to get a statistical average of what speed looked like under a somewhat controlled circumstance. Now, I will caveat that this is anecdotal. This is not necessarily scientific. This is just literally us banging on our machine, seeing what did the results look like. What I would encourage you is download our GitHub repo and try it yourself and see what happens on yours. I did my testing on the M1 Mac that I just described. These are the results from there. But in the head-to-head, we ran our tests. We used these commands, headless mode, Chrome or Chromium. In fact, on Playwright, I tested both Chrome and Chromium. They came back pretty much on point, same speed. So, Filip, what do we see happened?
Nothing to see here.
Oh, man.
I mean, yeah, obviously Playwright is faster. You didn't highlight it this here. Thank you for that. 4.6 times faster.
Got it, bro.
I guess that's again the design decision that was made for Cypress. So when you run that script, npx cypress run, basically what happens is that Cypress will open the browser, run your spec file. Then it will close the browser and open the browser again to run the next spec file. And this, of course, takes a little time. you can improve on that either with a faster machine or with different compilers. But the difference, I guess, will not be enough to beat to beat Playwright. At least not for a test like that. You said that it wasn't really scientific, but I would guess that even if we run those tests on the browser, the difference would not be that different. Not that big. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, because I know like Cypress is doing it inside the browser with JavaScript and stuff, whereas Playwright is using those debug protocols, so it can be pew super fast. What I would really be interested to see, because this is small set of very simple tests. I'd actually like to see a bigger experiment done. You know what I mean? To really gauge what can you expect for typical web UI tests? Because I feel like this is more caricature than anything, but nevertheless it is pretty telling when we are doing different kinds of basic interactions, and this was the difference that we saw. And from seeing some other articles out there in the world, these kinds of results are fairly consistent. So, yeah. I mean,
taking it on a big project would definitely be interesting. But yeah, I guess those results are telling, as you said.
Yeah. So
we get to the vote.
This is what I really want to see.
Cypress is going to win this one, right? Take it slow. That's the style.
3, 2, 1. Shall we? Push the audience. Wow! 100%. Nobody's in your corner for that one. Woo.
Yeah.
Wow. Well.
All right. Well, we have had a great webinar today. I do appreciate everyone with their comments and their questions. We've got a couple things we want to share with you before we announce the winner. We will be tallying the results, although I don't think it's a big surprise for anyone. We do have some questions for Filip and Andy. We're going to try to answer a few of those momentarily. And then Filip and Andy will have agreed to do a live stream after the event. So you can join them on YouTube. There's a QR code right here where you can join them a few minutes after the webinar ends. They'll take the rest of your questions and talk a little bit more about some of the places where there are, the areas are not quite so black and white. Before we do that, though, I want to give Filip a chance to talk about his workshop coming up next week.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. So if you're interested in the topic of Cypress, I'm here to teach you. So I do a workshop. It's starting next week. It's a 4-module online workshop, so you can join from anywhere in the world. This is a workshop that I have made. You're going to be learning by doing, so there's a lot of coding, loads of hands-on experience. We go through the core principles and best practices, and you can either scan the QR code now to head on to the page where you can sign up for the workshop, or you can visit my page, philiphric.com/workshop, and sign up there. You're all invited. There's even a promo code on the page, so you can apply that, and hopefully I'll see you next week. It's actually next Tuesday, if I remember correctly. So you got a last chance to sign up. There are a couple of places available, so make sure you get yours. See you there.
All right. Andy, you want to tell us about some of the things happening at TAU?
Absolutely. So as I hope all of y'all know, Test Automation University is something that Applitools sponsors. It's an excellent way for you to learn more about testing, automation, best practices, how do you go about it, how do you form a strategy. Both Filip and I are instructors on TAU, so make sure to take our courses. And we try to pop out new courses about once a month. I think our last one was Introduction to Observability for Test Automation, which was really excellent. We also have a course on Playwright out there. We have, I think, 2 courses on Cypress. So check it out if you get a chance. We'd love to see you there.
And without further ado, the winner of today's battle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds. The winner is Playwright. The winner today is Playwright. Thank you, everyone, for joining. As I mentioned, we are going to take a few live questions. Murat wants to know about network intercept and component testing.
Oh, that is for the boat, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, man.
I can actually answer that. So I was introduced as Filip the Interceptor, because intercept is kind of my favorite command in Cypress. So what you can do with that, you can sort of watch your application as it does different API calls, and you can wait for those calls to return a response so you can stabilize your tests a little more. You can sort of combine UI and API tests, which is really neat. And what you can do also is to mock the response. So you can observe your application, how it behaves on different edge cases. So if you want to see your application, how it behaves when it gets a 500 error, or when that request doesn't go through, or you just want to combine data dynamically, so you have your real data, but you just want to change one thing, you can do that, and it's a lot of fun. Now, with the component testing, that is a huge thing coming really soon. In fact, Cypress announced yesterday, maybe you got the email, that they are going to be releasing version 10 next week. So stay tuned for that, because Cypress is actually going to introduce component testing as sort of a first-class citizen in the whole testing, Cypress testing area. So what you can do is mount your components inside a real browser, so you can interact with them, you can test them, and I think this is going to be a really interesting new feature for Cypress. It actually has been available already in sort of a beta flag, but next week is coming with the full power on. So make sure to check that out. I think that's going to be an interesting one. How is it for Playwright? Because I haven't heard about this feature, but I'm guessing they do support that, right, Andy?
Mm-hmm. There is network intercept in Playwright. In fact, in the attendee chat, I just linked the Playwright article on it. I haven't done a whole lot of it myself, so I'm probably not the best person to ask. But you can do things like you said, like changing up requests, mocking, intercepting, checking in the way, having proxies and all, fiddling with authentication. I don't know if Playwright has anything for components. I can't speak to that, but it's cool that Cypress will.
Okay. Mark wants to know, does Playwright play better with applitools than Cypress when using Cucumber? He said he ran in.
Yes. So I would say that they work, basically the same between Playwright and Cypress. We have SDKs for both. Right now, I think the only SDK we have for Playwright is the JavaScript TypeScript one. Now, as far as how you use that with Cucumber, again, it's going to be, roughly about the same. I haven't done Cypress with Cucumber or Playwright with Cucumber. I think I know for Playwright, you can treat Playwright as kind of like a full test framework, or more as just a package that does browser automation. So if you were to use it with Cucumber, I would think you would probably want to not use Cypress test and just use Playwright as the automation package, pop that in as a dependency to your Cucumber project and drive web traffic that way. Cypress, I'm not as sure. Philip, you could probably do a much better job answering that than I could.
There's a plugin you can use. So so as the code that you wrote with Cypress compiles and enters the browser, you can actually I think internally it uses Webpack, but you can actually have different preprocessors. So you can even create a markdown file which gets compiled and rendered in the test in the browser. And there's on the same principle, there is a compiler that can compile different like feature files for Cucumber. I get questions here and there on my Discord on how to use that. I sort of just tried it out. It works, and you can use that. So there is an option. I'm not sure how big part of the community is actually using that. I think it's not that popular, but the option is out there.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, gentlemen, there are several questions in the chat about BDD and Cucumber, so that's definitely a topic to pick up in the live stream. Yep, John Qua, what reasons would I port my Cypress or Playwright to Playwright or Cypress? And again,
Philip,
that may be one to
first.
take to the live stream. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. Like the reasons would probably not have too much in common with the tool itself. I think it would more be about the business or about the product you're working with. So obviously, with the test, what we're trying to achieve is to have as little risk as we can with each release. So if you have a product where 80% of your users are using Safari, then you're probably getting a little higher risk of running those tests only inside Cypress, which currently doesn't support WebKit or Safari. So that might be a reason to migrate to that. The reason to go other way might be maybe that you're trying to have that Cypress developer experience that Cypress has, because you need to write your tests really fast. That could be the reason I can think of, but I think there might be some other reasons, or this reason that I gave might not be enough. So it's really I cannot really give a better answer to that. It's all kind of theoretical here. So yeah, not sure what you have, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it really comes down to what matters most to you and your team, right? You know, when I look at Cypress, I really like that nice, concise syntax, that it's very easy and approachable, even though it is in JavaScript and TypeScript, right? But like the framework itself makes it easy to write those tests, and it's very concise. It flows very nicely, so it's good for getting, you know, that stepping stone in. I also like the fact that Cypress is, you know, it has that nice big window, has that visual trace that you kind of flip through and you see the thing changing. So from that aspect, it's very friendly to complement front-end development, right? So if that's something that is a priority for you and your team, Cypress is going to be a great tool. But if you are looking for things like, you know, you really want speed, right? You're planning to develop a 1,000+ test suite, and you need it to run continuously all the time. You're going to pick Playwright, right? There, as we saw, there's like no competition there, right? Or if, I mean, this could also be the case. You've got a team of manual testers that you're training to do automation, and for whatever reason, you train them up in Java, or you train them up in Python, right? You train them up in insert non-JavaScript language here. Cypress is going to be inaccessible to them, right? So you've got to speak the language that they're already being trained in. So that would be another reason why you may choose Playwright over Cypress. I don't want to come and broadly say one framework is categorically universally better than the other. That's not my place. I see advantages and disadvantages of both. For who I am and the kinds of work that I do, I, by default, would be more likely to pick Playwright than Cypress for a lot of cases because of the things we discussed today. And that is something we can talk more in the live stream about. But that would be my answer to the which one should you do or should you convert over one to the other.
All right. Well, we have already gone over time today. So I do want to thank everyone for joining us for this live session. Thank you, Filip and Andy. This was absolutely great. A big round of applause to you. A big round of applause too to the audience. We had such a great chat. Thank you, everyone, for that. Again, thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you at a future event.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. This is a great event. See you all guys on the stream.
Thanks, everyone. Filip, it was an honor.